Okay, continuing with the similarities between IRC, ICQ, and Skype. Of course, the main similarity between the three programs is that they all provide the user ability to chat or text in real time. And basically, it all works the same way, except for in IRC, you need to either know how to private message a user or anything that you type is going to go into the public channel. But on Skype and ICQ, you can directly select somebody and start chatting with them in real time. So that is the main similarity between the three programs. The other similarities is that they all have the entry points for entering text once you have the text window up. Down here for IRC, if I had anybody in my contacts list over here, I would double click on them and start typing in the box. And for Skype, I can select somebody. So for example, we'll use my husband who's at work right now, so I won't actually text him as an example. And I would just start typing in this box. And then I would hit enter or go ahead and click this button over here to send the message. So like I said, he's at work right now, so I won't send him the message. But as you can see, it's very easy to go ahead and type in the box and to Skype somebody. The same as it would be over on ICQ, and even as in earlier versions as well, it was just as easy. The other similarities, especially between ICQ and Skype, is that with today's versions, you can make phone calls. You can also do conferencing. With IRC, you can do conferencing as well, but it is just text conferencing as opposed to doing video conferencing and screencast sharing. Now, if I wanted to send somebody a file, I'll bring back up my husband again. So to send a file to him, I'd go to this plus mark up here where I can add participants into the conversation, send files, and more. So for example, if I wanted to upload a PDF to him, I would simply click that button, select it from my desktop or wherever I have it stored on my computer, and then go ahead and send it to him. In ICQ, if I had anybody in my contact list, once I had the text box up, I would be provided an option to go ahead and send that person a file. So ICQ and Skype are very similar in that regard, and even in the older version of ICQ, users could file share between each other. So I'm a firm believer that if one person didn't create it, somebody else probably would have created it. But it's pretty easy to see how IRC ties into ICQ and how ICQ ties into Skype. IRC was one of the first programs that allowed synchronous texting or chatting on the internet and connected users from around the world. And then moving on to ICQ in 1996, even though IRC was still around, it provided more options, and especially on the usability scale, for people that weren't as computer savvy as people who use IRC, it was a lot easier to use. And like I said, it was also a lot easier to file share between peer-to-peer. It was also easier to set statuses, whether somebody was invisible or away, or customize status options. It took a lot of the guesswork of having to know the commands and the channels out when compared to IRC. And then moving on to Skype in present day, it takes a lot of the foundations that are present in ICQ. The availability to send files, the availability to chat in real time, and of course ICQ eventually caught up as well in regards to allowing video conferencing and things of that nature. Moving on to how and why people use IRC, ICQ, and then moving on to Skype. Starting with the how, a lot of it was covered in the similarity section previous to this one as I walked you through the steps of different things to do. Of course, with all three programs, IRC, ICQ, and Skype, people do need an available internet connection. That was the case back in the late 80s and early 90s for IRC. It was the case for the earlier versions of ICQ, and it's also the case for Skype. With Skype, there are mobile versions today, and therefore Wi-Fi connection would work if somebody's on mobile, and also a wire or a cellular signal that allows people to connect to the internet. So those are two of the constants that people need access to a device, and then that device also needs to have access to the internet in order to utilize any of these three platforms. And the main methods of how they use these programs is, once they get past the computer and internet aspect, is deciding on a username to log into the system and connect with other people, filling in personal details, and also knowing how to use the program, especially in the case of IRC, knowing how to send commands, knowing how to enter in channels, knowing how to create IRC bots to send files, and then moving on to specific things that people do on these programs. They use it to text and chat conference, to communicate with people they don't know, to communicate with friends and family, to communicate with coworkers. They also use the programs to learn. For example, IRC is big with computer programmers and web developers. So if they know other people who are developers or programmers that are on IRC and are on a specific channel, a computer programmer or web developer can join that channel, and if they're having problems or have questions about something or how to get something to work, they can go ahead and ask that question and have an immediate response for people helping them out. So aside from the fact that personal peer-to-peer communication can take place on IRC, ICQ, and Skype, all three programs can be used for conferencing tools and multi-user chat, which provides the opportunity for people to have conversations with more than one person at the same time. Moving on to why people use these programs, first and foremost, they're easily available to anybody in the world that has an internet connection and a device that can access the internet, making it very easy for people to log on and connect. Another reason why people use these programs is to have social interactions, either with people they know or with people they don't know. In my Module 4 assignment, one of the things that I listed under what people do or how they use them and why they use them is flirtation. Real-time chat and texting programs, regardless of whether they're on a computer or not, due to the study that I read about in Module 4 that I found, people are more apt to say things that they wouldn't necessarily say face-to-face and in person over instant messaging programs such as ICQ and Skype, and text programs such as IRC. That's because there's less of an embarrassment when it comes to rejection, and this is also one of the reasons why ICQ used to be very popular among college-age students who wanted to possibly date or hang out with another person, and they were too afraid to ask them face-to-face. Going back to my Module 4 information on why people used IRC and ICQ, the same can be said for Skype. To stay anonymous online wouldn't really apply to Skype, but people can choose how available they make themselves depending on their status and what they set their status, whether they're online or offline, to find answers to their questions about programming or other technologies, to communicate or have conferences with coworkers, or to have conferences with people who are not in the same office. Skype today is used widely for telecommuters, people who don't live near their office, or people who work from home but they still need to communicate either by text, by phone, or by video with their coworkers or boss, and to meet and connect with people all over the world, to chat with peers, to chat randomly, to flirt or be able to say things they wouldn't normally say to somebody in person, as I said, and to participate in real-time chats. all of those reasons that apply to IRC and ICQ also apply to Skype as it stands today. So once again, the functions and the capabilities that were first introduced in programs such as IRC and ICQ have now transferred over to today's popular programs such as Skype. So moving on to the next video, as you can see here, the next video is going to be how UNG and affordance theory once I get this video uploaded. And then we're going to move on to social impacts of Skype and also compare it to the social impacts of IRC and ICQ, and then tie in Skype to the readings and provide conclusions. So I'll see you in the next video regarding how Skype ties into uses and gratification and affordance theory.